All right, guys, today I'm here with my good friend Rudy, and we're gonna discuss a topic that I think a lot of people wanna hear about, and that is the differences between moving to Arizona versus moving to Texas. There's obviously a lot of people that are making that move right now. We're seeing a big influx on people coming into both states. Rudy has spent a lot of time living in Texas. He's now living in Arizona now, but he spent 20 plus years living out in Texas. So he's gonna be a really good resource on kind of comparing the two. This is not a sales pitch for either or. This is definitely really trying to give the information, the good and the bad, the pros and cons on both places, so you can decide whether one might be right for you, maybe neither are right for you. But if you guys are looking to kind of find out a little bit more about Texas versus Arizona, then stay tuned. All right, Rudy, I think the first thing I want to talk about that I think is helpful when people are looking to make a move is just kind of overall lifestyle. So let's talk about Texas first, and how much time, how long were you in both Houston and Dallas?
I was there about 20-25 years combined.
Okay, wow, all right. It's a good chunk of time.
Long
mostly
time.
Houston, mostly Dallas?
Mostly in Houston,
okay.
15-20 years in Houston, about 5 years in Dallas. So just,
okay.
Yeah, a good amount of time.
All right, and so I'm sure there's I've been to Houston to visit. I've never been to Dallas to visit. I'm sure that they're both pretty different, but can you give us kind of a general idea, like the lifestyle between the two? Any similarities, differences? What did you like about being in either town?
It's a busy lifestyle. It's a lot of hustle and bustle in both Houston and Dallas. Houston is the oil capital of the country. A lot of oil businesses, a lot of businessmen and companies that are in Houston, especially downtown Houston, that are oil related. So a lot of money down there for that reason. And same with Dallas. It's a metropolitan center for a lot of businesses that have been relocating there, and it was a very busy feel when I was both living there as a kid and then working there as well. It was just constantly working, staying very busy with that, and it was fun. However, there just, for me, didn't seem like there was a lot of activities to do other than to work. It just seemed like it was always constantly busy. There were activities to do outside of Houston and Dallas if you wanted to maybe travel a little bit. But other than that, it just seemed like...
What did you like between the two?
So the thing I loved about Houston was the food. So right. I love the fact that there was a lot of diversity in food. And,
okay.
And in Dallas, what I loved about Dallas was just the sports that were available with the Cowboys and the Rangers. And
are you a Cowboys fan?
Oh man, my wife is gonna kill me. No, I'm not a Cowboys fan at all. No, I'm not.
And so now that you've been out in Arizona for how long now?
Almost 3 years now.
Almost 3 years. So you've got a little bit of a taste of what it's like. Talk about the lifestyle in Arizona here, what your thoughts are so far. Everything that's new probably feels a little bit better, I'm guessing, but and there's probably a reason that you made the move here. But again, I want to be, totally honest with what, sharing with people. So what are your thoughts overall Arizona-wise?
The first thing is the ability to just do so much outdoor activity, and to just it doesn't feel quite as busy here, although it's a huge city, obviously, and there's a lot going on in Phoenix. It feels like you could spend a little bit more time out in parks, outdoor activities with your family. You could drive up to Sedona, Flagstaff, so many different places throughout the state that just kind of lets you get away for a while. And I didn't really feel that so much in Dallas and Houston, where you could just get in a car and drive a couple of hours and go do stuff with your family. So that's one of the biggest differences that I've noticed from living here versus Texas. It's just the ability to really every weekend having the opportunity to do something within the state. You don't really have to get on a plane anywhere. You just stay within the state and go do something totally different. And I didn't really have that when I was in Texas. Yeah,
it's interesting to think about. We do have, and that's part of the lifestyle when we talk about that here. I mean, it is nice. I mean, obviously everybody thinks of Phoenix being the majority of Arizona being the desert and kind of how what the climate is here, but we do have the ability to get up north and have like kind of a different landscape overall. Sounds like Texas is primarily the same. I'm sure there's a little bit differences here in there, but is there no mountain areas? I guess I've never even heard of any mountain areas.
No,
in
it's
Texas,
pretty flat.
Yeah. All right. So, all right. Good to know.
It is, and then we got a chance to go to visit the Grand Canyon too here since we've lived here, which I never thought I'd have the opportunity to do.
Yeah.
But it's only a few hours north.
Not too far away at all.
Not too far. Pretty cool.
All right, the next thing I kind of want to bring up, and it kind of piggybacks off of the lifestyle and kind of the landscape we were talking about, is just the overall landscape of what it looks like, kind of the view. I mean, we've got the desert here in Phoenix. You know, I think it's anytime, like I remember going into Houston and kind of seeing pictures, it feels like it's much greener there overall. You know, you're obviously surrounded by water in certain areas, especially like in Houston and that type of thing. So what do you think of the overall landscape when it comes to that? Like how would you compare it? What do you like or dislike between the two?
I like the greenery better. I like whenever we travel back to Dallas or Houston, lots of grass, lots of trees. It just feels great to me.
Yeah.
The desert look and feel still hasn't really stuck with me yet. I'm not in love with the desert feel. That's just my own personal opinion. But yeah, whenever we go home, that's the first thing we say is like, gosh, I miss all the greenery. I miss all the trees. I miss this landscape. As opposed to the landscape here, but I love the mountains here.
Yeah.
Every morning when we get up, I look out my front window and there's a mountain right there, and then I got Camelback Mountain in my backyard, and it is absolutely gorgeous. I absolutely love that part of it. So it's a little bit of give and take with both environments, but you know, I think depending on what you love, it's gonna be there for you.
And I'm in the same boat, and I agree with you on that, because I mean, coming from I spent most of my childhood growing up in Colorado. Coming out here was a big difference for me, and I feel the same. I love being able to go to places that have like a lot of mature landscaping, trees, grass, that type of thing. So I do miss that, you know, and I make fun of it all the time in a lot of the videos I'm doing when it comes to like when you're flying into Phoenix. I mean, it's not the prettiest thing to look at, but you know, once you get down here, there's a lot more. You know, obviously the area has done a good job in certain places of really making it attractive and that type of thing. And I think a lot of people come out and really spend some time in the neighborhoods and find it, you know, areas to be attractive. Even though we are in the desert, there are certain areas of the desert that are, you know, unpopulated, that are absolutely beautiful. So if you are able to kind of get out and explore a little bit, obviously some nice things to see in the desert, but I'm a fan of the greenery as well. I do miss it, and it is nice to be able to get up north and at least be 2 hours away from it. So from that point of view, it's nice.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into things to do, Rudy. I mean, you know, it's hard to kind of give you guys a list of everything there is to do between Texas and Arizona. Obviously, that list is way too long, but I want to kind of go from an example of living there and just kind of talk about some of the highlights that you remember, just kind of things that really you think back to, especially when it comes to Texas, of like some of the things that you really enjoyed doing.
I remember a lot of festivals going on, like the Renaissance Festival, the Greek Festival.
Did you dress up?
I didn't. I never dressed up. No. Maybe I will.
I bet there's probably a picture of Rudy online somewhere that we can find.
I'm sure my 3-year-old daughter can probably talk me into dressing up now.
Turkey leg?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The rodeo is a big attraction in Houston. The state fair in Dallas is also a big attraction. So those are some memories, and obviously growing up, being a huge baseball fan, we used to go and watch the Astros play all the time, and there was an amusement park across the street from the Astrodome called Astro World. It's no longer there. Anyway, lots of stuff to do in Texas that revolves around festivals that I can remember, and parks, and a lot of restaurants too. So things to do really. From my memories, revolved a lot around food, and that's one thing that Texas is known for: some amazing food, specifically barbecue. Well, some will argue that there's better barbecue in other parts of the country, but I feel like the barbecue in Texas is pretty darn good.
I've heard nothing but good things, so yeah.
Yeah, so food. If you love food, Texans are very proud of their food, and I think it's something that if you decide that you want to move to Texas, that you'll be very happy with.
Yeah, well, I think we've got a pretty good food scene here. We'll probably talk about that a little bit more too. And I think when you bring up all the festivals and that type of thing, like we obviously have a lot of the same stuff here. I would imagine, in my travels, kind of going around to other things, kind of the state fairs that I've been to in other states. I haven't been to anything in Texas. Tend to be a little bit more fun than here. I'm not, I've been to the.
I'll agree with that.
I've been to the fair here a couple times too, and I enjoyed it, but not as much. Like I went to like the Minnesota State Fair. That's a fair to me. Yeah. I would imagine what you guys had in Texas is probably a little bit more like that.
Yeah, I would not say that the Arizona State Fair is something that you should put on your list.
It's not on the bucket list?
No.
Okay,
no.
all right, fair enough.
I wouldn't compare it.
What about, we'll probably have to bring up this too. Maybe we'll save the sports team, but I really want to get into kind of like what the differences is between like going to certain games there versus here. We'll get into that a little bit later. All right, guys, if this information has been helpful to you so far, please consider hitting that like button for us. It definitely helps us to know if we're putting out the right content for you guys, helps us to get it to more people, and definitely leave a comment. Let us know if you guys agree or disagree on what we're talking about. We definitely want to hear your opinion as well. All right, Rudy, I think obviously one of the big things that people really want to know when they're comparing areas to each other is cost of living. I think over the last 6 months, if not 2 years, we've definitely seen a crazy difference as far as what the cost of living is, not only here in Arizona, but probably in Texas as well. You still communicate and talk to a lot of people who are making home purchases in Texas, that type of thing. So you're still very plugged in when it comes to that. Well, let's talk about cost of living in general, not only on the housing side, but just, other things that people need to factor in, whether it's different taxes, utilities, anything that maybe people need to know about the differences between the two. Well, let's get into housing first. Like, what do you see in housing wise, Texas versus Arizona?
Property taxes.
Okay.
The property taxes in Texas far exceed the property taxes here, and that's because there's no state income tax in Texas. There is state income tax in Arizona. So that is the first thing that you'll notice. Property taxes on a $400,000 to $500,000 house. Don't be surprised if it's $1,000 a month just in property taxes, and so that can certainly make the house a lot more expensive than it does here.
If you've done the numbers on this, I'm sure, like the $1,000 a month that you're spending on property taxes, what does that equate to as far as like home purchase value? Like if you were to buy like like if you had $1,000 to play with and you had property taxes versus spending it on an actual house, like how much more of a house could you get?
I mean, you could get probably about $100,000 more expensive house here, get a little bit about the same monthly payment, give or take. Probably a little more than that actually, just depending on the property taxes here. So,
but so good point there too. But I'm also like, when I look at the values, like, because I've gone in and I've looked at homes in Texas, and everybody kind of likes to jump on the websites. When I look at Texas homes versus Arizona property values, it looks like the home values are a lot better in Texas. So I would imagine maybe it's already factored in. Would you say it's already factored in, or would you say that there's still a little bit more buying power without having to pay the property tax?
That's a good question. I would say they're factor in. I would say they're factor in. I mean, the thing about it too is that it's just gotten so expensive to live in Texas because of property taxes that it's pricing so many people out more so than I think they are here.
Interesting. Okay.
And it's just from my experience, people are just, the affordability there has become more and more difficult and challenging, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. But yeah, that would be the biggest thing that I would say that you would notice difference between the two. And obviously the state income tax, that depends on your specific income situation, but also gas. I feel is cheaper there. Whenever I go to Texas, I feel like the gas is 20 cents or so cheaper there than it is here. Not a huge deal, but
it's not like the difference between here and California.
No, California is in a league of its own when it comes to that. And then when it comes to shopping, grocery stores, all that good stuff, it's definitely way more expensive here in Scottsdale. We live in Scottsdale. I work in Phoenix, but live in Scottsdale, and our grocery bills here are way more expensive than they ever were in Texas.
Interesting. Well, and I think, to be fair, I think a lot of people have seen a lot between the inflation going on. The groceries all over have gone up. So I don't know if you're comparing like what you used to pay a couple years ago or a few years ago to now. Hard to say, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're still a little bit more expensive here. So I do want to talk about utilities to a certain extent too. Is there anything like utility-wise? Is that kind of same, different than here? I mean, everybody's paying for electrical, gas. Maybe your cable bill, your internet bill. Sometimes those are wrapped together, that type of thing. Water. Any kind of surprises?
Water was extremely surprising and expensive when we moved in. Now, I will say we have a pretty nice sized backyard with it's all covered in grass. So we have to keep that grass alive, and our water bill in the summertime can be upwards of $400 a month.
That's here?
Here.
Okay.
Sorry, here. Yep. Yes, and our water bill.
Are you sure you don't have a leak, Rudy?
I might have a leak, you guys. So you might come. You know a good plumber. Call me. Yeah. So and our water bill never ever got close to that in Texas, and we had grass everywhere. But that
sounds expensive. We might need to check on Rudy's yard because
I think I have a problem with my
$400 sounds a little bit more expensive than I would think, but you never know.
And it's only during the summer. Once the summer's over, it goes back to more of a reasonable and respectable amount.
And I can see, that's definitely possible. If you have a lot of landscaping, and we do, obviously, we ramp it up quite a bit during the summer here. Although we have had a lot of rain this year, so maybe haven't had to water as much, but we still should check on that, Rudy.
I will get it checked out.
All right, since we were talking about housing costs, we might as well get into kind of the housing and neighborhood styles. I think there's a huge difference between what you see out here in Arizona versus what you typically see in Texas. And to me, even though I've lived out here for as long as I have, in my visit to Houston and definitely when I'm looking around online, I look at those homes and I like them a lot better, Rudy. So maybe now I'm biased because I've been out here so long and I'm like, hey, the grass is always greener. But what do you think overall, neighborhood to neighborhood?
Yeah, Houston and Dallas, there was a big boom in real estate in the early 2000s where a lot of big houses were being built. I just remember houses just getting huge. Big 2-story houses. They call them McMansions. There's a lot of neighborhoods with McMansions now that were built in the early 2000s. But the biggest difference is the style. In Texas, it's more of a traditional brick home. Here, the stucco look is way more common.
Yeah.
Our house here is stucco. We've never owned a home that was stucco, but it's common.
Yeah.
In Texas, a stucco home with what they call Mediterranean style roof, that brown looking tile at the top, that's considered a luxury. That's considered kind of a one-off. You live in a fancy house if you live in a stucco house in Texas. Yeah, but not here. It's pretty common here. So I would say that the style of house, I'd probably like it a little better in Texas too. I kind of agree with you on that.
Yeah, I think just the overall kind of exterior look of it, just when I'm looking, especially at like some of the stuff in the price ranges, there versus here, it just seems like, I know we talked about the cost of the property taxes and that type of thing, so that's something you got to factor in. But there is a style, and I've noticed, even for people that I've talked to over the phone that are like, hey, we're looking to maybe make a move to Arizona versus Texas, that type of thing, and they're looking at that. I think if people are shopping houses per se, there's probably going to be a lot of people that maybe lean towards Texas when you're just looking at style of homes. I think maybe Arizona wins out in other potential departments, but that, again, for me, when I'm looking, I tend to like those styles.
I think where Arizona will win is on the monthly cost of a house. In Texas, even if the house is going to cost $300,000 to $400,000, let's just call it, it's going to be bigger, I think, than it is here. But it's also going to be way more expensive monthly payment wise than it would be here. So I think that would be one reason why living here would be more desirable in that sense, that you can get a nice house and it's not going to break the bank, in my opinion. Just because of the property taxes.
All right, so transitioning again, but I think kind of piggybacking to a certain extent is, we were just talking about why people make the decision to go one place or the other. I think Arizona has probably the edge to a certain extent when it comes to the weather, even though everybody complains, especially myself, about how hot it is during the summer. We don't have to deal with a lot of the stuff that Texas has to deal with, and I'll let you kind of speak to that on your end. I mean, obviously we've all probably heard stories about what's going on, and you had between the hurricanes, and then you have the freeze this year, and everybody losing power and losing water, and all the. I mean, there's a lot of things that Texas has to deal with that maybe Arizona area does not. But let's hear from your experience, like what you had to deal with and kind of your preference one way or the other.
So in Houston, we had to deal with hurricanes and floodings. The infrastructure in Houston, it's not the best. So when there's a heavy rain, doesn't have to be a hurricane. If there's a heavy rain in Houston, there's going to be a lot of flooding. So that's a major inconvenience that you have to deal with.
Don't you have a boat?
yeah, we take it down to Galveston, down on the Gulf, but
not down the street.
Not down the street, no. And then in Dallas, you have tornadoes and hailstorms in Houston too. So tornadoes that you have to deal with. There was actually a pretty devastating tornado that just hit Dallas about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, right through the middle of the city in some very nice neighborhoods, expensive neighborhoods that just did a ton of damage. So you have that to deal with.
Humidity, you always hear about, especially from Houston.
So my wife and I have different opinions on this. I personally feel like the summers are worse here than they are in Texas. The humidity is terrible there. You'll just be sweating pretty much the entire time you're outside. But I feel like the heat here is worse. That's just my personal opinion. You feel pretty useless when you're here during the summertime. You have to just stay inside the entire time. I can kind of handle the humidity a little better for some reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't blame you for saying that. A lot of people will be like, hey, it's a dry heat. Yeah, cool, but like, there are some advantages. Trust me, there are times where I'm like, hey, I like that it's a dry heat, but I mean, this year actually wasn't too bad. We had more rain, which we needed, but with that rain, actually there was humidity here. So it's not like Phoenix is always a dry heat, and if we get any kind of the monsoons and it's actually an active monsoon season, there might be some humidity on this end. It might be not as much as what Houston typically sees. What's better between the two? Everybody's going to have a little bit different opinion. I don't like either myself. I'd rather not have either. But
mosquitoes. They're terrible in Houston and Dallas. And then we thought moving here, we would not have to deal with mosquitoes, and we were wrong. We do have to deal with mosquitoes here.
Well, here this year specifically, because of the extra rainfall that we had. So obviously they're going to follow the moisture, and if we have extra moisture, the mosquitoes will be here. So they've not been fun this year.
No,
it's maybe not normal, but so yeah, if you get a little rainy season, then you're going to have mosquitoes come along with it, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then in Dallas and Houston, not so much, but in Dallas, you'll get snow every now and then. I mean, like you mentioned, there was that freeze and then it was in Houston too. But it pretty much shut down the entire city for weeks.
I'll tell you what, because I remember when Dallas had the Super Bowl and they had like the freeze there, and it was like super cold. I don't think we've ever had that here. It might have rained a little bit when we had the Super Bowl here, but most of the time it's pretty nice weather.
Yeah, you definitely here you don't think as much about the weather other than during the summertime. And I kind of feels weird, but I lost concept of rain for a while there when we moved here for about a year and a half. I never saw any rain other than on TV or when my family would call and talk about how rainy it is back in Texas. So it's I kind of feel guilty.
It's pretty easy to be a forecaster here most of the time. All right, so I think a good one to talk about now, Rudy, is, and this one goes along especially well with weather, is traffic. Because a lot of times people are horrible drivers when there's bad weather. Now, I think a lot of people will just say there's horrible driving all around. Maybe you get the same thing in Texas as you do in Arizona, depending on, or it doesn't matter if there's bad weather or not. You just have crappy drivers. But now that you've gone through and you've driven through both areas, what are your thoughts?
The traffic in Texas is a million times worse than it is here.
All right.
A million times. And more because of, like, there is legitimate just bumper to bumper traffic.
Yeah.
When I lived in Houston, you could be half a mile away from somewhere and it would take you an hour and a half to get there. Just how, depending on the day, the time of the day, just so bad. Again, the infrastructure there is pretty terrible.
Yeah.
And in Dallas is growing so fast that the traffic is just ridiculous on the highway. Once it gets to rush hour around 4, maybe 4:30, and you're on the freeway, you can pretty much just kiss your time goodbye. You're gonna be sitting there for a while. And here, not so much. I feel like here, even during quote unquote rush hour traffic, it's not bad at all.
Yeah, I mean, depending on where you're going, I think, when you get into the heart of downtown Phoenix, you're going to have, definitely some trafficy situations on the weekdays with a little bit of rush hour. And obviously, it's been a little bit crazy over the last year and a half because a lot of people started working remotely, so maybe things weren't that bad. It definitely has increased this year again. There's certain parts of like the 101 in Scottsdale that get pretty crazy.
Yep.
But we are very spread out, and so that I think helps a little bit.
It does.
There are certain neighborhoods driving through that you're going to be a little slow moving at certain times. So I wouldn't say traffic's fantastic, but I would in my experiences driving in many places and traveling around and that type of thing and comparing, I would have to agree that for the most part, even though we do have some traffic, it's not always great. It tends to be better than other states, especially with what people talk about with the grid system here and it kind of being as far laid out as it is. It seems to be a little bit easier for people to get around.
And the HOV lane too here, I really like compared to in Texas. In Texas, the HOV lanes have designated areas where you can get in and out.
Yeah.
And if you pass that designated area, it's going to be miles until you get
Sounds
back
like
on.
California.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
Here, from what I've seen, you can just get in and out anytime you want.
Yeah, there's no worries on that. There's no, toll roads, because I think I heard there's toll roads in Texas.
Toll roads, yeah.
So we don't have any toll roads here, so you don't have to worry about getting extra tickets on that. We do have they used to have them on the freeways a long time ago. Now that you just see a few times where they have like the photo radar cameras. So I would imagine Texas has some of that too.
They do. There were a lot of red light cameras at one point, and they kind of slowed that down a little bit. A lot of people weren't too happy with it. But you brought up a good point on the toll roads. That's another part of the cost of living there that you have to budget, because if you're living out in the suburbs in Dallas or Houston, when we were in Houston, my monthly toll road was around $800-900 a month.
Oh, wow.
Because we live a little further out.
That's a chunk.
Yes. So that's
a pretty significant cost,
It is. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Hopefully people are working remotely now. They don't have to drive. All right, Rudy, let's get into kind of what your thoughts are. You now have 2 children, and one wasn't born before you moved out here. I think you had one out here. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have one born in Dallas and the other one born in Scottsdale.
Yeah. So, but let's talk about kind of what your thoughts are. Maybe it's hard since you didn't have your family as much during your time in Texas, but I want to talk like family-friendly, environment, and also schools. Let's talk a little bit about schools, that type of thing. It's going to be hard probably for us because I only have like a 2-year-old daughter as well, so we haven't really gone through the school system. Had plenty of friends that have gone through it, that type of thing. But let's talk about what your thoughts are, family-friendly, school-wise, when it comes to comparing the two.
Family-friendly, I would give the nod to Phoenix. I would definitely say that Phoenix is more family-friendly simply because there's more to do, more outdoor. Now, again, I didn't have a family, I didn't have kids when I was in Texas as much at all. So I'm a little biased because of that, but I feel like since we've lived here, we've gone to so many parks, museums. We've got a chance to travel a lot more on family road trips that we wouldn't have had a chance to do even if we lived there now in Texas. So I would give the edge to Phoenix definitely when it comes to the family friendly and stuff to do. It just seems like there's so much to do. When it comes to schools, from what I've been hearing, the schools here are not the best, and so in a lot of my neighbors and friends that have kids that are school age, they actually send their kids to private school.
Yeah.
And that was something growing up that I went to public school, and I never thought of private school when we were in Texas when that became a topic. So, we'll see once they get to that age if we'll be sending them to private school or not.
And I think, from what I can gather and people coming out here, there's so many people coming out here and you get their opinions, and you're going to have, if they're coming from an area that had higher rated schools than what we're seeing here in Arizona, I think they're going to tell you about it if they think that things are not getting better. But I think there are a lot of good pockets here where, the teachers are compensated okay, and then that translates into a little bit better schooling. That translates into a better environment for the kids. So, but a lot of times it just kind of, once a state is rated low, then it kind of just stays there. And I'm sure there's a lot of different factors. I'm not here to defend Arizona when it comes to the school ratings, that type of thing, because again, I didn't go to school here as a kid. And I don't have any children that have gone through it, so it's hard for me to say. But when I'm looking around and talking to some of my other friends that have had kids, it doesn't seem like it's as bad as what is portrayed, from a national perspective. So maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. Everybody has to make their own decision on that. But interesting to know, that you felt like Texas had maybe a little bit better reputation when it comes to that.
Yeah, and when I've talked to a few people, Chandler and Gilbert are known for their great school system, right?
Yeah, Scottsdale too.
Scottsdale too. Yeah, so not a knock. It's just from the people that I've talked to.
Yeah.
And personally, I think we're going to just send our daughter, our 3-year-old, when it's time to a public school right down the street from our house.
Yeah.
So it's not that big of a deal. I guess you'll know once.
Apparently, you don't care about your daughter.
Apparently not. Yeah.
Jeez, Rudy.
She's gonna have to go to a public school system like I did. You have to learn the hard way.
Yeah, hard knocks coming. All right, one topic we actually talked about a little bit before. You kind of brought up a little bit, Rudy, when it came to the food scene, and obviously you talked about how much you like the food scene, especially in like Houston, Dallas. I've heard nothing but good things about that there. I will say that I'm a pretty big fan of the food scene here in Arizona as well. I think, from my mind, I think we've got some of the best, and we've got such a large amount of people who are coming here that want to bring what the best of where they've come from to here. So I think we do a pretty good job as well. Maybe it's a tie, but let me get your thoughts on that.
My Texas friends are going to hate me, but the food scene here is, in my opinion, way better.
Oh, really? Okay, all right.
Now I will say Houston has probably one of the best food scenes in the country, in my opinion, just because of how diverse that city is. You can get anything you want in Houston. I want to say that Houston and Phoenix are neck and neck when it comes to the food scene. It reminds me.
Is it quality food? Because I'd say one of my favorite areas to go, as a city when it comes to food is like New Orleans, because of like just kind of the vibe. It's not only like the quality of food, it's a vibe. It's just a different type of thing. So it could be like that in Houston too. Like I didn't get to experience too much when I was in Houston, so I don't know if you've been there or to New Orleans to kind of compare, but then maybe it's like that.
New Orleans is probably number one on my list. Yeah. And in my opinion, what makes a city such a great city for food is if you can, not the fancy chain restaurants, obviously, but the local, family-owned, hole-in-the-wall restaurants that can deliver some amazing food. That, to me, is what really makes it an amazing city for food. And,
agreed.
And Phoenix and Houston, New Orleans is there on the list too, just knock it out of the park. Right? You can get anything you want here, small, local, family restaurants, that is just killer. Just amazing food. Every time my wife and I go out, it doesn't have to be a fancy place. So we've got a date night. We go to some of the local restaurants and just get completely just so happy with the food there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of chains around here that might be good. I definitely think there's a lot of overpriced garbage when it comes to some of the restaurants out here. And I've been very picky about where I go spend my money these days. But the people that do it right, and there's a good list of them. I don't mind spending the money there, because not only you get the environment, but you get top quality service. You get just an atmosphere that I think is really fun to be a part of. It's definitely been good to get back out there and do it this year a little bit more too. So I really like the scene out here. Not all of it's great, but There's a lot of good stuff to check out. We're here to help guide you guys with that. Definitely give us a call. If you guys want to kind of dive into more information, kind of what things that we talked about that might help you make that decision, we are definitely here to help. Pick up the phone anytime. We're here to have that conversation with you. Even if you're looking to go, somewhere, I don't mind helping on my side to kind of say, hey, here it might be a good fit. I know Rudy's, in the same boat as well. So definitely reach out to us. Rudy, anything else that you want to share before we sign off?
No, reach out to us. We love helping people. We love giving them the truth. No strings attached. We'll let you guys know our opinion and our professional opinion on stuff, and just let you know so that you're in the best situation as possible.
100%. Until then, you guys check out the other videos we have on screen, and we will catch you on the next video.